the leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All right, folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started.
Prepare yourself.
Okay, let's go. From a studio deep in the heart of Texas.
You're not going to believe the garbage that fell out of his mouth.
The voice of the working man.
This clown had the audacity to say that.
It's the Gavin Mitchell Show.
It's not a race issue. It's a First Amendment issue, and we all just need to understand that.
And now, here's your host, Gavin Mitchell.
What if I were to tell you that Iran is in the exact same position North Korea was in just a decade or so ago, and that North Korea set off a hydrogen bomb not too long ago, according to them? Hello, folks, and welcome to the Gavin Mitchell Show. I am Gavin Mitchell, and we need to be aware and concerned about what is going on in the Middle East. Some good news has come out of Iran here recently, and that's why it's back at the forefront of what we're discussing. Iran has released 5 hostages, 4 in a deal that we cut with them that the administration claims was over 13 months of negotiations, and 1 just because they're nice. They threw in a little extra chip, right? And all of this is on the heels of them taking hostage our sailors. So with all this said, I want to dig deep into this today and really unpack what is going on. And I think to do that, we need to go all the way back to the Clinton administration, not Hillary, but Bill, the Clinton administration, and the position that Bill took as this was going on. And President Clinton, some of the same rhetoric we're hearing from this administration, we heard from Bill Clinton with respect to North Korea. And why this is important is because North Korea has set off a number of nuclear explosions underground. The latest happening just a couple weeks ago that set off the Richter scales to a level of 5.1, which was a man-made earthquake. I mean, this was a serious earthquake. It shook the ground. And if you listen to North Korea state radio, they're saying this was a hydrogen bomb. And we've talked about it on previous episodes that hydrogen bombs carry the devastation and the destruction 1,000 times of what we've seen from the atomic bombs and what the United States dropped on Japan. This is a very serious situation. And so I want to rewind as we lay the groundwork for what's really going on in Iran. We need to take a look at North Korea back during the Clinton administration. And this is what President Clinton had to say. Ron, cut 1, please.
Before I take your questions, I'd like to say just a word about the framework with North Korea that Ambassador Gallucci signed this morning. This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons. South Korea, with support from Japan and other nations, will bear most of the cost of providing North Korea with fuel to make up for the nuclear energy it is losing. And they will pay for an alternative power system for North Korea that will allow them to produce electricity while making it much harder for them to produce nuclear weapons. The United States and international inspectors will carefully monitor North Korea to make sure it keeps its commitments. Only as it does so will North Korea fully join the community of nations.
Does that rhetoric sound familiar to anybody? And there's 2 tangents I want to explore here. First, what a bunch of lies or miscalculations or just flat out wrongs. So either William Jefferson Clinton, the Rhodes Scholar, an incredibly intelligent man, was completely wrong, or he just flat out lied to us. Now, you can say, well, that's such a bold statement, Gavin. He lied to us. Need I remind you this president was impeached because he claimed he did not have sexual relations with that woman. A lie falling out of old Billy's mouth is not preposterous. In fact, it's quite plausible. We have it on record. He was impeached because he couldn't tell the truth, not because he engaged in some immoral activity above or below the desk in the Oval Office. That's not why he was impeached. He was impeached because he lied about it under oath. So telling a lie is not out of the question here, but whether he was just mistaken or he flat out lied, he sold it to the American people at the time that, yes, North Korea wants to build nuclear weapons. They have a nuclear program that is up and running. And we have cut a deal with them, and there are sanctions, and they're going to police themselves, and Japan's going to help out, and South Korea is going to be there. And it's going to be a worldwide community effort to temper and suppress them from gaining nuclear weapons. Now, all of that sounds incredibly familiar to me. In fact, it would be verbatim if we could just rewind the tape and replace North Korea with Iran and Bill Clinton with Barack Obama. It's identical rhetoric. It is 100% the same garbage that we heard then. Now, why does that matter? Because if you fast forward now, North Korea is blowing up bombs that set off 5.1 Richter scale magnitude earthquakes at a nuclear testing site, and they're huge, they're big. They're serious, and they're not claiming it's just atomic bombs. They are hydrogen bombs, and hydrogen bombs can be put on the tip of warheads and shot across the Pacific Ocean. It's serious. And I ask the American people once again, at what point do we learn our lesson? At what point do we look back at history and begin to become wiser based on our mistakes? Apparently never. That seems to be the answer. So here we are with Iran in a very similar situation that North Korea was in just a decade or two ago. And they are sitting there and wanting a nuclear weapon. And Barack Obama, instead of calling it a treaty, calls it a deal. He's got a deal with the Iranians. And why is that so important? It's important because a deal doesn't have to be approved by Congress. A treaty does. So once again, this president decides he doesn't need Congress's approval. He doesn't need the checks and balances that were orchestrated into the Constitution because he's better than that. Yes, the framers wanted to keep a tyrannical president from running roughshod all over the country, but he's not that guy. He's smarter than all of them. And so here we are. We have a deal. And with this deal and with what happened, Iran is... They're starting to get a little swagger. They're starting to get a little bounce in their step, right? They launched ballistic missiles, which is a direct violation of this deal Barack Obama has. And what are the consequences? Zero. They shoot missiles at our warships, and I say at because they were less than 1,500 yards away in what they're calling military exercises. And what are the consequences? Nothing. They take hostage, and I don't use that term lightly, folks. In case it's not completely obvious to you, 2 amphibious vehicles with the United States Navy do not get lost and broke down at the same time. It doesn't happen. And the Iranian Navy took hostage. They put out pictures for the whole world to see of United States soldiers on their knees taken at gunpoint and forcing one of our female sailors into a hijab for the whole world to see. And what are the consequences of that? Nothing. If Iran has done anything, they have signaled to the world we are weak, we can be pushed around, and we are now a laughingstock. But if you turn around and hear the administration talk, that's not what has happened at all. Their response is, Thank you, Iran, for returning the sailors so quickly. Thank you, Iran, for being great guys and taking care of them, even though you shoved an M16 down their throat, forced them on their knees, forced them into your culture and your attire. Thank you. Thank you for kidnapping our sailors. What kind of garbage is that? And when did that become okay? I don't understand it. But here's why this is in the front of the news, because you've already heard my 2 cents last week about that whole situation. And before I get fired up again and lose my cool and possibly my job here, I'm going to tone it down and I'm going to get right to why this is on the front page again. Because over the weekend, Iran and the United States came to a deal that apparently had been in discussions for 13 weeks. 13 weeks of top secret discussions, right? And speaking of top secret, before we move on with that, did you know this deal that the president has cut with Iran, the details of it and the deal in its entirety are locked in a room in the Capitol building to where only representatives and senators and high-level staffers are allowed to access it, and nothing can leave that room. This deal is kept under lock and key, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody knows the exact details, at least they're not telling, but it's not even a classified document. Why does this administration not want it out there, vetted by the public, in which he's supposed to work for? To me, that's a huge question, and it needs to be answered. But back to the hostages. So this deal had been in the work for 13 months. And what did we get? We got 4 hostages out of the deal, and they had been imprisoned some as early as 2011. My first question is, why do we allow Iran to imprison any American ever for any reason? They don't get to do that to us. We're the big guys. And I'm not trying to go on a warmonger rampage here, but you don't get to do that to us. I'm baffled at why we allow Iran, Russia's little brother, to make a laughingstock out of us. But that's an aside. They released 4 hostages, and then they released 1 to grow on. You know when you're a kid and you get the birthday spankings, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 to grow on? They went ahead and released a 5th. All of them are on their way back to the United States now, and they appear to be in good health. Of course, they're a little mentally compromised, as anyone would be if they were held as a POW. What did we give in exchange for this? We gave up 7 Iranian prisoners who were released and pardoned. And moreover, we dropped the charges on 14 others. So what happened is it was a 21 for 5 deal. Which, okay, these 7 that were convicted and the 14 that were charged were charged for violating the sanctions, right? They overlooked the sanctions and continued to do business. It is what it is. I'm not upset by that. They should have been tried and they were convicted. They went through due process. The 5 hostages coming from Iran did not. They did not go through due process. They were just presumed guilty immediately. And the president came out and said that the clemency was a one-time gesture. I don't buy it. Look at Gitmo. Right? It's not a one-time gesture. He's all about freeing terrorists and radicals. He's letting them into the country. He's letting them out of prison. It doesn't matter to him. It's not a one-time anything. Save that for somebody who will buy it, because I'm not. It's not a one-time anything. But here's the whole hook, line, and sinker to me on this deal. Robert Levinson, a former FBI agent and CIA contractor, much like the guys we talked about in Benghazi, they were CIA contractors, but they were ex-military. Here is a U.S. asset who went missing in Iran in 2007. The last time we saw Mr. Levinson, he was in an Iranian prison. But Iran doesn't know where he is. He has no clue. They have no clue where he's at. And so we give up everything we have as far as Iranian detainees are concerned. We have 7 that have been tried and convicted through due process, and we have 14 who are pending trial, who have been indicted, and all charges were dropped. We gave them everything. And we don't even get everything back. Had it been an all-for-all swap, you probably wouldn't hear a lot from me. I don't like doing business with Iran because, remember, We're not supposed to negotiate with terrorists. And this is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. They should have never had the Americans to begin with. There shouldn't be an Iran right now because they kidnapped Americans. But okay, I'm a Texan. I like to pull the trigger. Let's be a little diplomatic about it. I'm okay with that. But we didn't even get everything. I'm baffled. And I'm baffled as to why this deal is still held under lock and key. I have simply had enough with the secrecy of this administration and the sleight of hand. And that's why this election is so important coming up. We have got to get a conservative that will stand strong for America. As promised, some LGBT, some lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, gender confused, whatever you would like to call them. But as promised, here we come. And you're not going to believe some of the stuff that is going on, even deep in the heart of Texas, in the land of the conservatives. But before we get there, I want to remind everybody, you can find us on the web, www.thegavinmitchellshow.com. Email me directly, Gavin@thegavinmitchellshow.com. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear your comments, your opinions, your dislikes, your likes, whatever the case may be. We are on Twitter at The GM Show, Facebook.com/The Gavin Mitchell Show. You can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes. We're on Spreaker and TuneIn as well. And as always, you can find the internet radio stations we are playing on our website. You can find the times and where to find those stations. And I would encourage you, tune in a little before and a little after. Find you some other conservative talk show hosts you like and fill your iPod or your Android device up with conservative talk and go about the day getting good, useful information. A little something I want to mention before we get into the LGBT issues is that our sound studios, Ron and Pinnacle Voice Studios, have some exciting news coming, and we couldn't be more excited to be a part of that. I can't let the cat out of the bag just yet, but some great things are working, and we are partnering with those guys on another venture. Aside from them handling all our sound and all our production, we've got another little venture coming up. So keep your eyes locked in on pinnaclevoice.com or on thegavinmitchellshow.com. You'll be able to find it at either place when we release it, but great things yet to come. So don't go anywhere and stay tuned to that. So as promised, the LGBT news, right here, just as I mentioned, deep in the heart of Texas, and we're from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and right in between Dallas and Fort Worth lies Arlington, Texas. And in the Arlington Police Department, they have an 18-year traffic cop veteran, a gentleman that has dedicated his life to the service of the citizens of Arlington, Texas. He's done a tremendous job, but he is on medical leave. And in and of itself, not a big deal. Medical leave could be a million different things. It could be that he pulled a hamstring jogging, twisted an ankle playing basketball. Could be a oral surgery. Maybe he had a tooth pulled. Maybe he caught pneumonia, something a little worse. Any sickness or anything of that nature. Absolutely medical leave. That's what it's there for. But when I tell you what this police officer is on medical leave for here in the heart of Texas, and this is the same Texas that just passed open carry, and we're conservative as they come. We still say grace and ma'am and thank you, sir. And we eat cornbread with our chicken after church. And that's just the way we are. That's who we are, and that's what we're about. And we don't care for other people to impose their way of life on us. So deep in the heart of Texas, here in the land of Southern Baptists, and I am Southern Baptist, we have a police officer who has left on medical leave, a man, and will return from medical leave, a woman. This officer has taken advantage of the medical leave program to get a sex change. This is something he's discussed with the higher ups in the Arlington Police Department. This is something that he has discussed with the police union, and all of them give him two big thumbs up. Go get him, Tiger. Whack it off if you want to. And I have a serious problem with this on a number of levels. One, just the sheer morality of it. Here is an individual who is charged with keeping us safe, whose judgment and determination in a split second sometimes means life or death. And they go about deciding which laws to enforce, and sometimes you have to pass. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but sometimes you don't necessarily pull over the person speeding because there's a bank robber right next to them, right? They have to make these tough decisions, these life-altering decisions in a split second for our safety and determine what's best for the community. And this person who is wearing this cloak of policeman, who is out there policing our society and using his judgment, has decided to use taxpayer dollars to have a sex change. That was a good decision in this person's mind. And the tax dollars aren't just for the operation, because it's an insurance plan, I'm sure, that he's riding the coattails on. So it's regardless of what Bernie Sanders wants, and that's to get rid of privatized health insurance and have it all government ran. It is a private insurance company. And so the rates will go up for the Arlington Police Department and possibly the entire city of Arlington, because this operation can't be cheap. But it's not just the operation. It is going to be the hormone injections, because you just don't stop being a man because you cut off the man genitalia. You still have testosterone flowing that you have to neutralize and overcome with estrogen. And I know that's very simplistic, but that's it at the X's and O's level. Moreover, there's counseling. This guy has to go through counseling, and I wish some Christian counselor would have got a hold of him and slapped him straight. Because on top of all of this, he's standing up on the hilltop screaming, "Your God made a mistake. I'm out there making life and death decisions, arresting people, possibly sending people to prison. I'm using my judgment, and in this same judgment that I use every day to help the citizens of Arlington, I am saying God made a mistake with me. The assembly line was moving too fast. He screwed up with me." I have a serious problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, and it's disgusting. Moreover, what about the fellow officers? How do they react? Does anybody care about them and how they might feel? This is an era of safe zones. And this guy left a man and came back a woman. And if you look at it in sequential order, it's officer he, then she, all around a medical leave. So not tongue in cheek, but I don't mean it as a derogatory term. I absolutely do. Officer he, she is imposing his way of life and his will to alter the dynamic of the locker room, to alter the culture of the police department. What about the citizens he patrols? Doesn't he care what they think? Of course not. This is a completely selfish and self-centered move because he thinks God made a mistake. He feels like a woman today, and he probably has for the last couple weeks. And so this is a good move for him. He's going to drain city resources. He's going to tap into city resources to alter his genitalia because God made a mistake. What an arrogant, self-centered SOB this guy is. My God doesn't make mistakes. Period. End of sentence. And there's good news for Officer he, she. Because if Representative Bob Dold, D-O-L-D, not Dole, but Dold, D-O-L-D, a Republican from Illinois, has his way, well, there's going to be consequences if he's discriminated against. Now, it's no secret where I stand as far as the Republican Party calling itself the conservative party these days. We have no opposition party. Now, I know that Paul Rhino, the Speaker of the House, has gone a long ways. He took a great step in getting through the House a bill and convincing Mitch McConnell to use the tools he had to get this opposition bill to Obamacare, a bill that strikes down Obamacare through Congress. And hats off to you for doing so. But even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. And one step does not make a marathon, sir. It's a great step, and I applaud you for it, but it doesn't make up the omnibus bill at all. It doesn't correct that debacle at all. But it's a step in the right direction. But in whole, generally speaking, this Republican Party is not an opposition party to these liberal, socialist, Nazi tyrants that are running the federal government right now. They just don't. And so this pseudo-conservative, this liberal in Republican cloak is out there, and he has supported a bill, legislation, that Barack Obama supports, Joe Biden supports, and I'm telling you, if the con man in chief and his puppets support it, it's not a good thing for this country. It really has dwindled down to that level. Here is what the bill is. It is H.R. 3185, and it amends the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, you can say to yourself, well, shoot, that sure does sound familiar. Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is the very bill that allowed blacks and whites to desegregate. This is the bill that required blacks to be treated as equals as whites. It was a landmark bill. This is what Dr. King and Rosa Parks fought for all those years. This is that bill. And what Bob Dole, Republican from Illinois, wants to do is to include sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity to the list of protected classes in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, I want to pause for just a second and think to myself, what would Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King say about this? Now, the sex component, the man versus woman, admittingly, until I got in and started doing some research, I was a bit surprised that sex wasn't already included in this. But sexual orientation and gender identity, what this means, folks, is if you own a private business and Officer he, she walks in, let's say you bake cakes, because that's a very real example. It's already happened. You bake cakes, and Officer he, she walks in and wants a cake for her or his or its birthday. And you say, Officer he, she, man, I love you. I do. But I can't support what you're doing, and this is my private business, and it reflects on me. So I'm respectfully going to have to decline, but you're welcome to go down to Kroger and get a cake made there. Officer he, she can now file federal charges and sue in civil court for discrimination against this cake maker, against me. And my question is simply this. In a world where we have to pull Linus's explanation of what Christmas means out of the Charlie Brown special, and we can't have Santa Claus and Jesus and the nativity scene anywhere to be seen, but we have to accommodate the Quran and praying Muslims and all of this garbage, at what point does that person's rights stop where mine begin? Because it seems if you're a Christian person, a Christian citizen in this country, your rights mean nothing anymore. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're gay or lesbian. I don't care what you do. Keep it over there. You're welcome to make your own decisions. Just don't bring them over here. But the government is shoving it right down our throat and forcing us in our private businesses to accommodate people that say, your God messed up and I'm the proof. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that on any level. And now we have Republicans hitching their wagon for all this nonsense about gender confusion to the same truck that pulled the equality for the races, the same truck that pulled Martin Luther King's cause. And it is disgusting. Folks, it's the Gavin Mitchell Show. I'm Gavin Mitchell. We'll be right back.
Today's episode of The Gavin Mitchell Show is brought to you by
Pinnacle Voice Studios and Sound Productions. Find us on the web at pinnaclevoice.com.
We'll be back in a moment.
Hey, everybody, it's Chris Salcedo from the Blaze Radio Network. You are listening to The Gavin Mitchell Show.
I want to get into the role of what the press should actually be during campaigns. And if you paid attention, you know that This is without question a result of what is going on with Mark Levin and his fiance's son and all that surrounds it. And I want to talk about and cite some things here in this campaign season. I don't want to go back to the last presidential election. I don't want to go back 10 presidential elections. I want to talk about what's going on, and I want to ask, where is the line? Have we crossed it? Are we good? Are we good with the relationship between the press and the candidates and what's off limits and what's not? Because I don't know that I am. And I want to talk a little bit. If you listen to Mark Levin, and if you don't, you absolutely should. A true conservative patriot and someone that served in the Reagan administration, and he understands what it means to be conservative. It is not issues or platforms that necessarily make you conservative. It is a combination of core beliefs that result in positions on different issues. And taking that inside out approach, he gets it, and he doesn't care who you are. He believes in the Constitution, and he believes in America, and he has been fortunate enough to be blessed with a voice that reaches millions of people. And as a result, this country is blessed because having somebody like him plant the flag for conservative folks like you and me and shout it out is exactly what this country needs at a time like this. So Levin opens up his segment last night pretty hot under the collar. And what has happened is he believes that one of the presidential campaigns is out there, and they found out that his fiance's son works in Ted Cruz's Senate office, which, okay. And they are claiming that this is a conflict of interest, and they are going to expose Mark Levin and this relationship and prove that it's all been an inside job, and Levin's biased, and he has been since the beginning. And all of this is an attempt to discredit Levin, to shut him up, and Levin believes that this is a presidential campaign from the right that has originated on Capitol Hill. That is Levin's belief. He doesn't believe it's coming from the Democrat side. He doesn't believe that it's Donald Trump. He thinks he's got a good idea of who it is. And so Levin has come out with this quote during his show last night. I would play you the sound clip, but I'm not real sure about the copyright laws with this, and I definitely don't want Mark Levin mad at me. And so I'm just going to read to you what he said. Somebody thinks they're going to get to me, that they are going to get to me and silence me or quiet me or intimidate me through this backdoor effort. And I want to expose them to the entire nation. And I want them to wet themselves. And I want them to know you better be on guard, because if I find out, if my inkling is right, you're the story. Now, he seems to have a hunch as to who this is, and I don't think he's mad that somebody's coming at him. In fact, he said that on the air. I think what really has ticked Mark Levin off is that they're using his family or someone very close to him. Once him and his fiancée get married, obviously he'd be family at that point, but somebody very close to him to leverage him to sway Levin or to discredit Levin because his fiance's son works in the Cruz Senate office. Levin is pissed, and he should be, because this is going too far. This is going too far, and I opened the segment with what role does the press truly play, but I want to expand it now, not just the press. What is off limits during a presidential campaign? Because here we have a guy, a true patriot, who makes his living commentating on the happenings up on Capitol Hill, about politics, about presidential elections, about elections of all sorts. That's how he makes his living. And his voice is so strong that a campaign, at least according to Levin's hunch, is now leveraging his family to discredit or sway Levin. That is a problem, folks. That is low down and below the belt, like I don't think I have ever seen. And my question is, why is it so bad for Levin's fiance's son? And you got to connect a few dots there, right? Why is it so bad for him to work for Ted Cruz's Senate campaign, but Rush Limbaugh has played tremendous amounts of golf with Donald Trump? He stayed at the hotels. He admits it freely on air. He hangs out with the guy. Why isn't Limbaugh being drug out onto the carpet here? It's because Limbaugh is above reproach, and so is Levin. This is a low-down, dirty trick that is absolutely unacceptable. You know, what is allowed is the behavior of the candidates, the voting record of the candidates. Anything the candidates say or do is absolutely fair game. And if you bring somebody on stage to stand up in front of the world and say, hey, I endorse this candidate, then that person and that association is now fair game. Case in point, Hillary Clinton. Because she is bringing Bill along for the ride, Bill is completely fair game. Now, whether he molested, raped, assaulted, womanized, who knows to what degree, I don't really care. Because I think Hillary has done enough to land herself in the penitentiary and shouldn't even be qualified for the office of the presidency. That's my opinion. But the fact that she supported Bill as Bill ran around with all these alleged affairs, that's questionable at best. And then for her to turn around and say, yeah, I fight for the women. Garbage. Complete garbage. More lies from the left. But my point to all this is, she is parading Bill around. Bill is campaigning for her. Bill obviously has endorsed her. Bill is fair game. What is not fair game is Mark Levin's fiance's son, who is working. He has every right to work for whoever he wants to. It is America is still a free country, despite what Barack Obama wants to do to it. And Levin's son can work for whomever he wants to. If he wants to go work for Trump, and all these are points Levin made. If he wants to go work for Trump, he can. If he wanted to go work for Hillary Clinton, he could. Now, that may cause some waves in the Levin household, but he can. And that's Levin's point. He is a grown man. His decisions have nothing to do with Mark Levin. And let me ask you something. If you aspire to be in politics to some level, and your mom's fiance was Mark Levin, would you leverage it? Would you say, hey, could you put in a fight? Absolutely, you would. Which brings me to my next point. Marco Rubio's brother-in-law. It was in the news everywhere. When Marco Rubio was a teen, his brother-in-law went down in a giant drug ring, and Marco really had nothing to do with it. Senator Rubio had nothing to do with what happened. It was proven that he had nothing to do with it. His brother-in-law goes down, he does his time, and he gets out, right? The only association Marco Rubio has with his brother-in-law is that this guy's married to his sister. That's it. And now they're family. And the guy has served his debt to society. He has fulfilled that. He served his time. And now he's out. Now, let me ask you this. What do we want from this guy in society? Forget it's Marco Rubio's brother-in-law. What do we want from this guy? We want him to be a good, productive citizen. We want him to turn away from the life of crime, and we want him to lead a productive life and become a good guy. That's exactly what we say we want. Is it not? So what does Marco Rubio do? At this time, he's in politics. He's somewhat successful. He's a rising star. And so he scratches out a letter endorsing his brother-in-law to get his real estate license. Why is that so horrible? Why is that so bad? But the media jumps all over it, and oh, look who Marco Rubio's associated with, and look what he did. Let me ask you this. If it was your brother-in-law, if this guy was married to your sister, and your sister believed in him enough and forgave him to stay by his side after everything that happened, shouldn't you? Absolutely you should. I don't want to hear that garbage. Oh, well, you know what? My sins are forgiven because Christ died on the cross. If I expect to be forgiven, I have to forgive others. And if you're not going to forgive others, shame on you. But Marco Rubio's sister decided to stick by him, so Marco does, and Marco does what he can to help him within reason and within the bounds of the law. He didn't break the law. He just said, look, I know this guy. I know he's turned his life around, And I would like to recommend him to get his real estate license so he can go out there and build a career and become a productive citizen. Is that not what we want? It absolutely is. But yet we attack Marco Rubio for his family. What does that have to do with Marco Rubio? They want to bring him down like he was the one arrested for the drugs. He wasn't. And then we have Ted Cruz. And the Washington Post draws a cartoon, a caricature of Ted Cruz and his daughters are depicted as monkeys. And the artist came out and said, no, that's fair game, because Ted Cruz introduced his girls into the campaign by putting them in that Christmas ad. How low can you get? How shameful is that? Now, the Washington Post kind of backtracked, but the artist never did. And I want to be crystal clear. Kids are off limits. Period. End of sentence. And Marco Rubio actually came to Ted Cruz's defense on this. He said, hey, low blow from the Washington Post. Kids are off limits. I'm with Ted Cruz. And they're running for the same office. They're competitors right now, but they agree on that. And again, the Washington Post came back, kind of retracted it, covered it up, but the artist didn't. And that's what I'm most frustrated about, is that kids are off limits always and forever. That has nothing to do with a presidential election. Nothing. They can't control what their parents do. They can't control the decisions their parents made. They don't get to choose who they're born to. None of us do. As a result, they are innocent bystanders, and they are off limits to the press. They are off limits to other candidates. And even Donald Trump running his family out there the way he does, they are adults. They are off limits. Now, if as an adult, I guess his daughter, what is her name, Ivanka? She's got some celebrity, so if she wants to stand on stage and say, I endorse him, now she's fair game because that's an adult. But you don't get to attack these silent family members who are just going about their day, trying to make a living, trying to build a life, and you certainly don't get to attack somebody who's not in the race, fiance's son, because you don't like the message they're portraying. It's absolute garbage. Meanwhile, Limbaugh's out there playing golf with Trump, and nobody mentions it. And that's because Limbaugh's a powerhouse, and the respect should be there. But so is Levin. And whoever it is, I can't wait to see how this plays out, because it is going to be fantastic when the fury of Levin lands on this candidate. Because I'm telling you right now, Limbaugh and Levin, they sway elections. They have that kind of voice. And Levin has gone out and he has put a $5,000 bounty, and he even said maybe it should be more on the air, but that's the number, $5,000, for anybody who can prove to him who it was. And he believes wholeheartedly it is a Republican candidate who is up on the Hill. And that only leaves a couple. That leaves Rubio and Rand Paul, does it not? I don't know who else is up there. But it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. And I cannot wait. But I want to underscore, family is off limits. Folks, don't go anywhere. We got another segment to close out the week. I will see you on the other side.
The Gavin Mitchell Show, the podcast, is brought to you by
Pinnacle Voice Studios and Sound Productions. Find us on the web at pinnaclevoice.com.
We'll be back in a moment.
So it's getting very, very hard to get away from election news, to get away from just campaign news. And I want to touch on other segments, but unfortunately, with a 30-minute show, there's only so much we can do. And the hot topic right now is the campaign trail, because we've got Iowa right around the corner. I would love to get into some economic issues. We kind of talked about the crude situation and the sanctions being lifted off Iran and how that's going to flow directly into your property taxes, believe it or not. It happened in the 80s. It's happening now. I'd love to talk a little bit about China and the stock markets, but right now it is election time. And it is getting serious because Iowa is right around the corner. Now, some bad news came out for Hillary today, or actually yesterday, I believe, that in a poll through the first half to the middle half of January, she is now trailing Bernie Sanders by 8 points. And folks, 8 points is outside the margin of error. So she is behind Bernie Sanders, the socialist in Iowa. First off, I don't believe anybody can seriously vote for Bernie Sanders. He is a socialist through and through. Everything about him is socialist. And anybody in this country that subscribes to socialism is non-American by definition. Socialism is not America. America is capitalism. It's individual rights. It's individual liberties. That is what America is, and socialism is the exact opposite. So by the very definition, if you subscribe to socialistic principles or you are a socialist, you are non-American. It really is that simple. You are non-American. Now, I can hear some of our socialist friends out there pushing back saying, no, Gavin, no, I just want what's best for this country, and the wealthy are so rich and we're out here fighting. You know what? Welcome to life. There's only three kinds of fair in this world. That's county, state, and world. Life is not fair. The better, the smarter, the more intelligent, those are the ones that succeed. And if you don't succeed at the degree you wish you should have, go home and practice. Go home and get better. Find another way. But don't steal from those who have found a way so that everybody can be equal. That's garbage. That is pure leftist garbage, and that is un-American. So you either get someone that's going to prison or you get a socialist. I guess if that's the response I got in Iowa, if I were taking this poll and that's what I got back, hey, I had to. It was the only other option because Hillary's going to prison. Okay. I'll buy that. I'll accept that. That's fair, right? But any other explanation, I will not take. I will not accept. And Hillary, the trouble doesn't stop there. My gosh, she is knee deep in all of this. This talk about her being establishment, and she was asked, is she establishment, on one of her national interviews this week? And she begins with, I don't even know what that means. Well, you know what? Just like Ted Cruz says, when he answered the question about the New York values, and the moderator said, I'm from New York, I don't even know what that means. And he goes, well, you wouldn't, you're from New York, right? When you're in it, you don't recognize it. Just like many people don't notice the smell of their own home. Not that it's bad or pungent or anything like that, but maybe your wife or your husband has a fragrance they like, a Febreze or something. And after a while, you don't smell it anymore, but when people come over, they do, right? You're so far into it. You're so far entrenched. You don't know what it is. And Hillary doesn't even know what the establishment is. She is a Clinton. Of course she is establishment, right? That is the definition of establishment when it comes to the left side. You had the Kennedys. Now you've got the Clintons. That's what it is. That is the establishment. That is this group or this cult or this collective that has gotten together to work the undercurrents of what happens in Capitol Hill to get their own self-interest promoted. That's what it is. And don't get me wrong, the Republicans have the establishment too, right? The old smoke-filled room of the old guys who control everything, and it is what it is. But to say she doesn't know what the establishment is pure garbage, because she does, and she is absolutely part of it. But playing dumb isn't where the bad news stops for Hillary Clinton. Being asked about the 13-hour Benghazi video. Well, Secretary, are you going to watch that video? No, I don't have time. Well, of course you're not going to watch it because it's your fault those people died. That blood is on your hands. Of course you're not going to watch it. I would hate for you to actually have to face your mistakes head on or face your intentional deceits head on. God forbid you're held accountable for anything. How stuff slides off you is beyond me, but it does. But here we go. Robert Gates. And if you don't know who Robert Gates is a former defense secretary. He can be partisan. He can. He's not, he's not middle of the road when it comes to politics. But when he's talking law and when he's talking national security, he is middle of the road. He is straight lace. He is pull no punches. He doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't embellish. It is what it is. He's a facts kind of guy. And he was commenting. He was actually out interviewing. He appeared on a radio show promoting his new book, A Passion for Leadership. So he's on this book tour, and being the former defense secretary, of course, he gets these questions. And he was asked about Hillary Clinton's server. And he said, this was yesterday, that odds are pretty high that Hillary Clinton's private email server was compromised by America's enemies. The odds are pretty high that Ms. Clinton's private email server was compromised by America's enemies. Are you kidding me? Now, he goes on to cite, and this is Gates again. Well, given the fact that the Pentagon acknowledges that they get attacked about 100,000 times a day, I think the odds are pretty high. Yeah, they are. They're extremely high. And what we learned this week is that the emails coming off this private server, they're not just classified. They're not just top secret. They're the level above that the stuff is so top secret and so confidential that the people doing the investigation have to get special clearance before they can continue to investigate. It is that serious. And this stuff was sitting on the email server that now former Defense Secretary Gates says, man, the probability was pretty high. Keep in mind, the Pentagon gets attacked about 100,000 times a day, right? You've got Chinese and others out there just pounding away at the keyboard, North Koreans, Iranians, Russians, pounding away at this is what they do. They just type code to try to hack into the Pentagon, into the Department of Defense. And here we go. Hillary Clinton seems to think that she can stick a server in her basement and run confidential information through as long as she hides it to where it won't set off any flags as it goes through. She doesn't need to follow the rules because she's above the rules. The rules are in place for a reason. It's national security, but not to her. Absolutely not. And so this more than top secret, confidential, classified information is passing through a server that, in the opinion of the former defense secretary, was most certainly attacked. Is that enough to now say that she was negligent? She may not have intentionally handed over classified information or top secret information or even the level above that, the SAP, but she did not take the proper precautions to secure that classified information and as a result put this country at peril. Is that not the very definition of negligence? And there is a negligence clause in the Espionage Act, ladies and gentlemen. There very much is. And so my question is this what finally gets Hillary Clinton after lives are lost in Benghazi because she wants to cover up her mistakes there and doesn't want anybody to find out and goes through and lies about videos being propaganda and starting this and lying to families and creating this Arab Spring and all of these debacles that she and the president are involved in? Is it the emails that finally get her? And keep in mind, the Clintons have this air that they don't have to tell the truth. If you rewind back, and we've talked about it earlier, Bill Clinton got impeached. You can count the number of presidents who have been impeached on one hand. He was impeached. Not because he had extramarital affairs with an intern, but because he lied about it. Because he lied about it under oath, he was impeached. This is a family that has it in their culture that they can lie. They should lie to get what they want. They're above the law. They are not held to the same standards as you and I. We've got her right where we want her. And the ball is teed up to knock it out of the park. And all we have to do is pull the trigger. And I'm almost concerned it's happening too fast, because don't we need her to get nominated first? That way it's an easy win for the right. But it should be an easy win anyway, if people care what's best for this country, because the answer is not a socialist and it is not a felon. Folks, that's going to do it for today. Remember, in the words of the great Ray Wiley Hubbard, on the days I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations, well, I have really good days. I hope you have a good day, folks. Have a great weekend, and we will see you come Monday. I am Gavin Mitchell, and this has been The Gavin Mitchell Show.
Thanks for listening to The Gavin Mitchell Show, the voice of the working man, produced in Fort Worth, Texas. If you like what you just heard, subscribe on iTunes and Spreaker.com. These and other links can be found on our website at thegavinmitchellshow.com. Be sure to tell your friends and colleagues about the Voice of the Working Man's daily podcast. All opinions expressed by the host or guests on this series are solely their opinions and do not reflect the views, policies, or positions of the Gavin Mitchell Show or its affiliates. This has been a Ron Phillips Pinnacle Voice Studios production.